I said, do it again, turn around, go back, breathe, breathe, breathe. Hey, I would have you guess that song, but that would not be
That
fair.
song is the width of the circle, or a
Nope,
width of a
nope,
circle.
no. Let me stop you right there. Listeners, here's the thing. So this is take two. And the first attempt when I sang this song, Robert was not able to guess the song. So you're full
Hey,
of
give me a break
shite.
here. Give me a break here.
All right, I'll give you a break. Give you a break off of that piece of that kick. I just fucked that up. Wow. All right, shut the fuck up, Andy. Hey, episode episode three,
Season
season
two.
two. David Bowie, Robert. Take
Yes.
two. How are you doing?
Take two, season two, episode three. I'm doing fine. As I uh, was saying to you earlier, I was sick this week, so I apologize if I'm snuffly and coffee and stuff like that. I'm just getting over what felt like death. So, yeah, but I'm ready to go.
You ready to go? Well,
Yes, yes.
so here's the thing. So guess what you're gonna have to do?
I'm gonna have to reiterate what I had said on take one. Which,
Yep.
hey guys, I got some news. So as we've talked about like many times on this podcast, pretty much since we started, we have been wanting to branch out to different platforms. Well, we have finally done that a little bit through Anchor. So right now, not even just basically every previous episode of this podcast, from the very first King Crimson episode to this episode, are going to be available on Anchor right now. And yeah, I know a lot of people have been wanting us to move to a different platform. The biggest gripe people have had that we know personally with our podcast, with as far as being able to listening to it, is that YouTube has been the only option. Now, obviously, because of data plans and kind of the inconvenience of YouTube in terms of listening to a podcast format, there's been a lot of challenges for people to actually hear us. So I've got us up on Anchor. You do not need to have an Anchor account. You don't need to have the app or anything like that if you want to listen. The link will be below in the description for YouTube. It's also our Anchor page is linked directly now to the YouTube page. You should be able to see it on the top right with the other links to the SoundCloud and other stuff. But yeah, you should be able to see it right there. You just click on it. It'll bring you right to the Anchor page. I will be updating each new episode simultaneously on Anchor and YouTube. So if you prefer to watch the YouTube version, it'll still be available as always. But if, like I said, you don't, the YouTube version doesn't work for you, it's up on Anchor. As far as other platforms go, Anchor is supposed to distribute your podcast to tons of other platforms for you. I actually applied for that when I first started uploading stuff to Anchor. Excuse me. And when I applied for it, it originally said it's going to take a couple of business days to a week. Well, that was several weeks ago. Basically, I applied, and Andy, just so you're aware, like literally the day after I saw you in person. So that's how long I've had to wait.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah,
been a
that
few
was
weeks
like
now.
two
That
and
was
a half
like
weeks
shortly
ago.
after
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. So yeah, so I still haven't heard anything. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm gonna work on that. If I have to, I will just start distributing our stuff manually myself. Like I said, I don't really know what the deal is there. But the point is, there is one other alternative now to watch this podcast. So yeah, feel free to hit up Anchor and tell your friends, and yeah, give us
Yeah,
a
definitely.
give us a download.
Spread the word. And as far as Anchor goes, I do believe the only instance you would need the Anchor app is if you wanted to download our podcast offline. Um, I know
Yes.
listening to music and podcasts offline is something I really rely on.
Uh
I
huh.
use Spotify and Pocket Cast Go. Um, and yeah, I mean, podcasts especially eat up your data. So that was really our purpose of using Anchor, and with hoping to utilize Anchor to expand on other platforms. Like Rob said, we're currently figuring that out, guys. And as soon as we can get that figured out, we will absolutely give you an update on that. But do use
Yep.
Anchor because, yeah, we want you to listen to us.
Absolutely. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention when we tried to do our first take of this. Excuse me. Got a little bit of a tickle in my throat here. One thing I hadn't mentioned was that the other thing we're going to be expanding on is potentially social media. We've been talking about doing that just so we have some kind of presence and to promote the show more. So as soon as we can, I will have links in the descriptions and in of the videos and also on the actual YouTube page. And I think we kind of discussed maybe splitting it up. Andrew doing Facebook because he still uses Facebook. I do not use Facebook, but I use Twitter for my other channel. So I was thinking about starting a Twitter for the show as well. So keep an eye out on that if you're interested in following us on social media as well.
All right, yeah. Thanks for the update on that.
No problem.
Yeah, so Man Who Sold the World. Should we get right into it?
Let's get right into it, man.
We don't have anything else to talk about, right?
No.
No, we're good.
Hey, the weather, the other... Nope, we're here to talk about David Bowie.
Oh, wait, this isn't a weather podcast?
No.
Oh, all right.
It was 54 and cold and windy the other day, and I don't know. I would make a terrible weatherman.
All right, Rob, shut the fuck up.
No.
I'm sorry. Hey, do we want to talk about this? I'm sorry. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Get off the mic for a second.
Yeah?
I'm really sorry I said that on the mic.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Okay, we good.
Let's get back to it.
Let's get back on the mic. Okay, hey, we're back. All right. Man Who Sold the World. So, do you want to give us... No, I'll give you the overview. So, The Man Who Sold the World. Record number 3, studio album number 3 by English rock singer-songwriter David Bowie, released in the United States by Mercury Records on November 4th, 1970, and then that can't be right, and then April 1971 in the United Kingdom. I'm calling bullshit on that. There's no way that's right. Fucking Wikipedia. Okay. This was recorded by producer Tony Visconti. This album's hard rock style was a departure from the largely acoustic music of Bowie's previous self-titled album / later renamed, as we discussed if you listen to episode 2, Space Oddity. Personnel. So we've got, of course...
Whoa, that's my job, man. Personnel, we have, of course, Mr. Bowie himself on vocals, guitar, stylophone, organ, and the sax. He's quite good at the sax. Mick Ronson on guitars, backing vocals, making his official debut. Well, not his. I'll say his official debut on a David Bowie studio album.
Yes, liner note debut. Mick Ronson.
Tony Visconti on bass guitar, piano, guitar recorder. He produced the record and the backing vocals. Mick Woodmansey, drums and percussion. Ralph Ace, the Moog synth, and Ken Scott engineered the album.
So can I just digress for a second here, because this is just where my brain goes. So
Sure.
When you mentioned that David Bowie was quite the saxophone player, so
Yes.
Currently at my school, one of the bulletin boards from our music teacher has pictures of celebrities, like musicians, actors that played musical instruments growing up, as well as teachers who teach in that school. So the bulletin board has a picture of, I think it's like Aladdin Sane era Bowie. That's as David Bowie played the saxophone, and then right next to it, a picture of yours truly, Mr. King, played the saxophone in high school.
Wow.
Oh, but I was not the saxophone player that Mr. Bowie was. But anyways.
That's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah, so I had to share that. But all right, so let's give a little background on this record.
Okay.
Starting with the album cover. So I have to tell you, are you familiar with the US album cover?
I'm looking at it right now. It kind of looks like it almost looks like a comic.
Yeah.
It looks
it
like
kind
a
of
guy
looks like
in a cowboy hat
deformed,
holding... Yeah.
John Wayne almost. Oh, it actually is John Wayne. Okay, hey, look at that. So it is John Wayne.
Yep.
I've always preferred this version of the album cover, and I believe I have my vinyl copy of this is this album cover. I should actually double
Mm-hmm.
check. But the well-known album cover is the British version of it, which is of course Bowie on the cover. I don't know, it looks like a couch he's laying on in the dress.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably around the time that we really started to hear some controversy over Bowie and his sexuality, and
Mm-hmm.
some of that came up around this era of his career.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean this record, like this is just a great record. I mean, I think for a lot of people, and I think you've said this before, a lot of people consider this the first like true Bowie record.
Mm-hmm.
There's some fantastic stuff on here. I'm gonna have to say that for me, that's the next record, Hunky Dory, personally. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but whereas Space Oddity was like hundreds of thousands of miles, ahead of the first record. This one is still, I would say a lot better than Space Oddity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what's so cool about Bowie and talking about Bowie's albums is like hearing about other artists who were inspired by not only by David Bowie, but a specific Bowie record. And
Yeah.
this record alone like set the curve for Sweet Seed and the Banshees, The Cure, Gary Newman, Nine Inch Nails, and even a
Mm-hmm.
band like Nirvana, who famously covered "The Man Who Sold the World."
Yeah. And sorry, you Nirvana fans, but the Bowie version is better. But let's not get into
Oh,
that
the
right
Bowie
now. We'll
version's
get to it.
absolutely better, but I gotta say, I love the Nirvana version.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, nothing wrong with that version. It's just I'm a little salty that these days it seems that's the more popular version.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Anything you want to add as far as background for this album?
As far as background goes, I think you summed it up quite nicely. I think I'd fall under the camp of this being more this really being the first true Bowie album. I really like Space Oddity. Not really a huge fan of the debut, but I do enjoy Space Oddity. But yeah, I think this is more. At least you really start to see a lot more of what is to come. I think in terms of within the next few years of what becomes the iconic David Bowie persona. You really start seeing that accelerate on this album, and really and truly, I think the culmination is Ziggy Stardust, as I think possibly could agree on there. Hunky Dory takes it a step further,
Definitely.
even than this one. But yeah, there you could definitely. I mean, yeah, I'm looking at the album cover right now, and that is like the UK one to specify, and that's definitely some pre Ziggy stuff going on right there, with the whole kind of cross dressing thing.
Oh, totally. But even the music itself.
Yes, and the musicians on the album too.
That's true. Yeah.
Actually, um, but yeah, I don't know. I think you summed it up nicely. I want to say for myself, and this might surprise you actually to hear because you know that I'm a huge fan of early Bowie.
Mhm.
From the albums between, I'm not going to count the debut, between Space Oddity and I don't want to say Let's Dance. Well, okay, I'll say from the albums between Space Oddity and Let's Dance, this is on the lower end of albums that I'm familiar with. Actually,
Really?
yeah, it's not the lowest. There's a couple of albums there's one specific album I've never heard at all, and there's a couple I've only heard a few times. But yeah, this is definitely on the lower, like on the lower. What do I want to say here? It's one of the albums that I've heard the least of the classic '70s David Bowie period.
That is surprising though. I thought you were a little more familiar with this one.
I was familiar with a few songs, but not the whole record.
Okay.
So this one was a really interesting one for me to go back to because I really hadn't heard the whole album in many years, and I'm not familiar with it, and it kind of really gave me a fresh perspective on the album. So I'm really excited to get into this one. Actually,
Well then, that's a perfect segue. Let's get into it.
let's get into it.
Side one, track one,
So
the song that I beautifully opened up the show. My vocals now, that was fucking terrible. The Width of a Circle. I've always loved this song. This is,
Hmm.
to me,
Yeah.
probably the proggiest David Bowie song.
This
Um,
album is probably the proggiest he got.
um, that
Hmm.
it's just fucking banging. Um, there's some like borderline Black Sabbath. Not saying that Bowie was listening to Sabbath during this time, but this song like feels like it
Yeah.
wouldn't be too out of place on like say the first two Black Sabbath records.
Can I say, um, before we even
Mhm.
get into the whole album, I don't know. Well, I don't know if you want me to say like a few initial thoughts about the album, or if you want me to save it for when we talk about overall impressions of the album. But just had a few
Okay.
comments about like overall with the record. So the first one is that you were saying, in terms of this song being like the
Mhm.
proggiest song he's ever done. I think this is the proggiest album he's ever done, and it's probably the heaviest album that I know of, at least from the '70s, that he's
Yeah,
done.
definitely in terms of the 70s, probably the heaviest record he's done. I'd have to say
Yeah,
overall, the heaviest record he's ever done is probably Outside. But yeah, definitely in
yeah,
terms of the
yeah.
70s, hands down, this is.
Yeah, as far as the early Bowie, this is some of the heaviest stuff I think that he's
Mhm.
ever done, which is interesting. And then the only other thing I was going to say is I really think that the name of this album should be called the Ronson Visconti Experience, because I'm telling you, man, the first time, especially when I listened to this with headphones on, I was just like the interplay between Mick Ronson and Tony Visconti, on bass and guitar, and the drummer too. Actually, uh, let me get the guy's name. I couldn't remember it.
Woody
Mick
Woodmansey,
Woods
yeah.
Woodmansey. Mick Woody Manzi. Okay. Um, amazing musicianship. Really, really, really
Yeah.
awesome stuff. It was funny when I was listening to this, because, like I told you, I'm not as familiar with this album, and I'm listening to the bass. I'm like, this bass is like, who is this fucking bass player? And then I look, I'm like, wow, it's Tony Visconti.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I
And
had
it's a
no
shame
idea
because
it was him that played the bass on this until I actually looked into it. So it was quite a surprise. Like, what a tremendous bass player he is. Well, basically, what I was saying is that when I heard this, I was like, wow, I love that bass. Who's this bass player? And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's Tony
oh, okay.
Visconti. I had no idea until I looked into it. I was like, wow. I was like, he's a tremendous bass
Slapping the
player, you know.
bass.
He's really a great musician, actually. I think like I've been quite surprised with the last two records when I hear some kind of the flute and occasional dream. I was like, that's Tony Visconti, you know. You know what I'm saying? There's been quite a few times I'm like, what the hell? Like, so this record again proved to me once again how I think Tony Visconti is just as important to David Bowie's career
Oh,
than the man
Tony
himself. I mean,
Visconti
he's
is, let's
really the
just go on
unsung
record and say
hero.
this right now.
Yeah.
Tony Visconti is David Bowie's George Martin.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
totally. He's very, very important to David Bowie's career. But that being said, going back to the actual first track, yeah, it's great. Like you said, it's probably the proggiest he ever got. Um, the instrumentation is great. Excuse me. And yeah, I thought it was a really fun rocker, and love the guitar and the bass. It's a cool,
There
heavy
is,
track.
I don't know if you've heard um, there's the Live at Santa Monica version is pretty cool. That one goes over like a little over
Uh,
10 minutes, but the Ziggy Stardust version is like 14 minutes, and that one's really good too. It's a really
mhm.
cool jam breakdown section in the middle of the song. Definitely
Cool.
worth checking out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a great opener. I agree. I think this is one of the heavier tracks, proggy, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, just a fun song.
Uh,
I've always really loved this song. Um,
Yeah, it's a cool way to
Totally.
kick the album off too.
So let's talk about track two then. All the Madmen. So
Hmm.
I've always gone back and forth over this song. This is a very dark track. I think this one's actually about his brother, which he's written quite a few songs about. Um,
Hmm.
when listening to this song, I've always kind of gotten like this King Crimson meets Genesis, kind of like mashup a little bit. If like, yeah,
I
if
could
almost
hear
like
that. Yeah.
Peter Gabriel was the front man of like the Court Poseidon era of the band. Would be the best way I could describe that. What do you think about this track?
I thought it was good. I like that it kind of starts off as like your analogy there. Actually, I think is really good. It's a cool. It's kind of cool how it starts out as like a very acousticy sort of sound, and then it kind of just it basically like builds up into it becomes a cool like rocker heavy electric piece. And I really like the drums on this song too. Actually, some really cool little moments there by Mr. I will figure out how to actually pronounce his name correctly. Mr. Woodmansey.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's Woodmansey. Yeah.
Woodmansey. Woody Woodmansey.
So
What
I
a
just,
weird
for the
name.
sake of just fact checking myself, this track is indeed about Bowie's
Uh-huh.
brother. It's his half brother actually, Terry Burns, who was schizophrenic. He
Hmm.
fought in Vietnam, I believe, and him and Bowie. And this is not the first track or the first song that Bowie writes about Terry, but they had a really, really deep relationship, and um, actually, probably the best well-known song that's about Terry Burns would be what's that song called? What is it called? Jump They Say off of Black Tie White Noise. So yeah,
Hmm.
he yeah, this is probably the darkest out of any of the songs that he wrote on behalf of his brothers. Just some really deep stuff here. I should actually pull up the lyrics. Oh, I have them right here.
Hmm.
They send my friends away to mansions cold and gray, to the far side of town, where the thin men stalk the streets while the sane stay underground. I can fly, I will
Hmm.
scream. I just skipped a couple verses. I can fly, I will scream, I will break my arm. Some dark shit.
Yeah, no
um,
kidding.
yeah, so I mean, not one of my favorites off the record, but um, definitely a good track though. Just some really, again, we talked about some of the um the bands that like this record influenced, like this song like definitely created Sweet Sea and the Banshees. Like there's like just some dark stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's really all I have to say about this one.
It's kind of funny that it's kind of funny, especially if you look at the UK album cover and you hear a lot of this record. It kind of doesn't fit.
Yeah,
It's weird.
yeah, for sure.
It's just kind of strange, and even really like the US cover, it could have I don't know they could have done a better job with the album cover, I guess. But yeah, especially definitely some dark stuff on here and heavy stuff.
um all right, so let's move on to track three. Black Country Rock. This one's never been one of my favorite David Bowie
Hmm.
songs. Most of my gripe on this track is just like it reminds me of like that annoying vocal style that he had on all of the first uh, Bowie record. Whereas I said on that one that you can tell he was like the confidence as a singer and a writer weren't there yet, and he was still trying to figure out
Hmm.
all of that. And this song just reeks of those vocals.
Hmm.
And for that alone, I've never really gotten into this track. That and this one always kind of felt like a cheesy Zeppelin song, and
Hmm.
Zeppelin cheesy is not one of my favorite things in the world.
I actually
You know me,
I,
I like my deep cut Zeppelin, not my cheesy
true.
Zeppelin.
I actually really liked this song. I thought the the hook was really good. I like the chorus. I actually thought it was a really cool. Like this song probably more than any other one on the album has been stuck in my head. you know. I actually like for some reason like the vocal style, so I didn't really associate it with the first album though, so I could kind of see, especially since I know how much you dislike the first album, where you would get that. But yeah,
Mhm.
I thought it was a cool track. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that it's probably
The
one of the, or if not the catchiest track.
I actually thought that
Um,
the vocals had a Bolan-esque quality to them too, like Mark Bolan.
well, it's funny that you say that because, and I believe he's uncredited, but Mark Bolan, I believe, does sing backing vocals on this song.
Really, I gotta look at that now. See, now that this is something. Yep, there you go. Its style has been compared to Mark Bolan's contemporary Tyrannosaurus Rex, down to Bowie's imitative vibrato in the final verse. Okay, I swear to God, I did not know that. Amazing that this like that it actually says it right here. That's pretty great. It doesn't
um,
say anything about
all right,
Mark
so
Bolan being on the
oh, go
track
ahead.
though.
What's that?
It doesn't say anything about Mark Bolan being on the track though.
I it maybe it's another song. I could have sworn it was this
Uh huh.
track that it was Mark Bolan singing backing vocals and he was uncredited.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, regardless whether that's true or not, the influence is
Yeah,
definitely
you
there
can
for
hear the
sure.
T Rex influence, that's for sure.
Yeah, totally. All right, so where we're at so far is we both seem to be in agreement with Width of the Circle.
Mm.
Uh, we seem to overall share the same opinion and feelings on all the Madmen. Black Country Rock seems to be the first song where we
I
diverge.
think so, yeah. I really liked Black Country Rock, and it sounds like you weren't really a fan, so.
Yeah, I would say as I'm looking at the rest of the track list, probably my least favorite. Either
Mm-hmm.
that or another track on side two that we'll get to
Okay,
momentarily.
cool.
But let's talk about After All, which is track four and closes side one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Out of all the songs on this record, this was the grower for me.
Yeah.
I, I really like this song. It is a pretty out there song.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this sort of predates the glam stuff a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like this song probably could have fit on Hunky Dory, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This is definitely the Sid Barrett track off this record. We know Bowie is all about his Sid Barrett. And this would definitely be the one that I would say, yep, this is the Sid Barrett influence song.
I wrote that it was it's kind of a sort of cerebral ballad. There's some great sax
Yeah.
by Bowie in it, and it's kind of got a weird proggy feel, like folk proggy feel to it. It's cool. I think you actually, I don't know why I didn't associate Sid Barrett, but you're absolutely right. You can definitely tell the Sid Barrett influence in the song.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, aside from that, there's not really a whole lot that I have to say about this song.
I'm also on Wikipedia looking at it, and do you want to hear this little what you call it this little sentence on here about it? I thought you might appreciate it. It says one of a
Go
number
for it.
of Bowie's songs from the early '70s, reflecting the influence of Frederic. I'm gonna butcher this name. Frederic Nietzsche and Aleister Crowley. It has been described by biographer David Buckley as the album's hidden gem, and by Nicholas Pegg as one of Bowie's most underrated recordings. Well, there you go.
I mean, I would have to 100% agree with that, in that out of every song on this record, even though this one's not my favorite, this I would agree. This is the hidden gem for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this was the one for me that, and I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've listened to this record, but just re-listening to it the past week or so, this is the one where that's really stood out in the sense of this is a great song. This is
I
a
personally think the whole first side of the record is really great. I mean, I know you're not a big fan of Black Country Rock, but I loved it, and I thought like I was really surprised listening to this back a few times. I was like, wow, this is actually a really solid album, and I wish I had listened to this more when I originally had gotten into it. Because yeah, it's so far like by the time you get to that song, I'm like, wow, it's been really great so far. So
yeah. Yeah, no, this is definitely a cool track.
mm-hmm.
A hidden gem for sure. Definitely check this one out, guys.
Yeah.
Um, so whereas you said you really liked side one, and side one of this record is pretty good overall.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I gotta say side two might be the stronger side?
There's a lot of like, well, but yeah, I'll get to my thoughts on that.
Okay. Well, let's get into it then, actually, because unless do you have anything else to say about After
Nope.
All? Perfect. All right, let's get into side two, track five, Running Gun Blues. Um, I, if we want to talk about hidden gems besides After All, I would give this as the other
Mm-hmm.
hidden gem. Difference being is I've always loved this song.
Mm-hmm.
This song reminds me of like it's very swagger
Mm-hmm.
ish in the sense of like I get like Exile era Stones. You want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about like a swagger record or swagger band for that matter, the
Mm-hmm.
Stones. But that's the vibe I get from this track.
I really liked the song too. I just at first when I heard it, I thought the vocals in the beginning were a little silly. Um, but yeah, this one also kind of grew on me too. I think there's some really good. There's also some really good playing on this one. It kind of turns into a pretty kick-ass rock piece or like rock song, if you ask me.
Totally. And again, I'm looking at the lyrics of this track. I count the corpses on my left, find I'm not so tidy, so I better get away, better make it today. I've cut 23 down since Friday, but I can't control it. My face is drawn, my instinct still emotes it.
Pretty badass lyrics.
I'm just going to go on record and say this right now. Um, to me, in terms of
Hmm.
lyrics, and I'm not one where lyrics is necessarily
Hmm.
my priority with my music that I listen to, with some exceptions. But I'm going to go on record here and say that I put Bowie up there with the Dylans
Hmm.
and the Lennon and
So do I.
McCartney
Yeah, absolutely.
in terms of, and we're just talking lyricists. Bowie to me is one of the greatest rock
Yep.
lyricists.
I would definitely like absolutely.
I mean, kind of hard to argue against that, right? I mean, you know, I talked about in the first episode, Bowie being a chameleon and maybe in the sense wasn't an innovator when it came to music, um, but what he was brilliant at is taking what music was around of that time and blending it together and making it into his own.
Yeah. Well, I would actually see, in that sense, it's kind of, I think I'd actually, in that sense, I did disagree with you in terms of him innovating music. Because he had a way of writing music that was really unique and influenced a lot of bands. So
Oh,
I
for
think he
sure.
was
I
an
mean,
innovator. I don't think he was just copying,
so
you know what I mean?
I guess if you, and I'm not necessarily saying copying, but
Yeah.
I guess when you do put it like that a little bit, you could make the argument that, well, really, yeah, I would, in that case, he is an innovator, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't, I digress. Again, I feel like that's another, we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on the last episode. I think we talked about it off mic. There are certain words and phrases that I use very often, and I digress as one of them.
one no one of these days gonna put a compilation together of you saying we're gonna get to that in a minute or we're gonna
Yep,
get
that's the one you pointed out. And we're gonna get to that in a minute. Or we're gonna get
but yeah,
to that in a
overall good
second.
track. I really like Running Gun Blues.
Yes, yes. Same, one of my favorites. And then that brings us to track six, or track two of side two, Savior Machine. Um, I've never really been into this song. Not very memorable. What I will say I do like about it is it's very King Crimson-y to
Hmm.
me. Um, again, I would have to reference, Court, in the Wake of Poseidon era, King Crimson. Um,
You just got to expect it, folks. We still are hot off of the King Crimson
I
series.
know, I know. But that's always been the vibe I've gotten from this track. But other than that, I would actually say probably this is my least favorite
I
track.
think musically it's really interesting. I said it's
Musically, it's very
and
interesting.
see, so here's again where you and I might differ. I don't know. I will say this I think I've said this before, and I just will say it probably till the end of time. I when I listen to music, I always hear the music first, and I've always like I don't discount lyrics, but because
Hmm.
lyrics are an important element of it, but I could hear a song 40 times before really noticing the lyrics. I mean, I always will go, and maybe it's because because I was a bass player and I've just always, noticed bass and rhythm. As a bass player, you listen for the drums, so it's like I always notice drums and bass, and just I don't know. I'm always more attracted to like the instrumental side of things. So if music doesn't have anything interesting musically going on, then I'm not interested, even if the lyrics are like the best thing ever. There's a few exceptions to that. There's guys like Bob Dylan who writes such good lyrics, and I think his music, the way he writes songs, is interesting enough that I think it holds my attention really well. Like a song like Subterranean Homesick Blues, immediately you hear the lyrics on that, and you just hear the way he sings it, and you hear the way the whole song kind of is structured. It's really interesting and it's really different. But yeah, long story short, I've always been more of a music guy. So when I'm a lot of these, like especially these tracks on the second side here, the first thing I noticed, like I wrote here, great vocals, like Bowie's vocals in this I thought are really good. The guitar and the bass are great, very heavy and progressive, and Mick Ronson does an awesome guitar solo in this song, and that's just the stuff that I always notice first.
Yeah, the
You know?
guitar solo is pretty freaking fantastic in this song. I'll give you
Yeah,
that.
like I don't know if I could even tell you what the lyrics on this song are about. You know what I'm saying? I always listen to the
They're very
yeah.
abstract. Yeah.
I'm just always I've always been a like I said I always listen to the musical side of it, and I just found it interesting. It's a you get these. This is a solid like I really think if Bowie kept going with this band, it's a solid hard rock band that he's got. Um, I mean I know obviously he keeps going with Mick Ronson. But even like the way Tony Visconti plays bass, the drums in it. I mean, one thing I really love about this record is that you could tell Mick Ronson's really stretching out and just going to town. And I think we said this in the last episode. You can never go wrong with more Mick Ronson.
No, totally. And Bowie in the short time that Mick
Yeah,
Ronson was in the band, Bowie totally utilized that man
yeah,
to his fullest.
absolutely.
And when we get to Aladdin Sane, I mean, to the point where Mick Ronson is a multi-instrumentalist. I mean, like he really utilized Mick Ronson's
Yeah.
talents, and that's another thing, um, where I guess really I kind of want to take back what I said, where Bowie really is an innovator in the sense that what Bowie was a genius at was he knew who to work with,
Hmm.
and not only did he know who to work with, but he brought the best out
Oh
in
yeah.
that person. Take Mick Ronson, take Brian Eno, take Robert
Yep.
Fripp. He just
Adrian
had
Belew.
this Adrian Belew, Lou Reed,
Yep.
Iggy Pop. We can go on and on.
Hmm.
But he knew who to work with and he brought the best out of
Oh
them.
yeah.
I'm a pretty big Brian Eno fan, and some of Eno's best stuff is with Bowie.
Oh
I
yeah.
would make the case that getting off of the King Crimson series, some of Fripp's best stuff is on Heroes and Scary Monsters.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with
Bowie
that.
just had this innate ability to bring the best out in you. And I think now that I'm saying this, that's what's for me, that's what's so special about Bowie.
Hmm. And if you ever, listen to like, some of these people, some of these guys you mentioned are my heroes. I mean, uh,
Totally.
just from bands that I absolutely adore. And if you ever like read or listen to interviews about people, whenever Bowie comes up, they all have nothing but praise for the man. Nobody ever shits on Bowie that I can think of that has worked with him. None of them. I mean, you can tell that they had a very, very good working relationship with him and a good personal relationship with him, which I think says a lot about
Yeah, I
him.
mean, for the most
You
part,
know?
I can think of a few
Yeah.
people that for a brief time there, like Lou Reed stands out specifically, but I know that they, hashed it out and
Yeah.
all was good towards the end of both of um, their
I
lives.
believe
But
Lou
yeah,
Reed
I
had
mean,
it out with a few
absolutely.
people though.
Well, that's
I know him
true.
and Zappa hated each other.
Yeah, they did. But you know what? I'll tell you what, you talked about heroes. Lou Reed is one of my heroes.
Yeah.
A hero that I would have never wanted to meet, but a
Yeah.
hero nonetheless.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I love the
sorry, we've
Velvet
been
Underground. But anyways, this isn't a Velvet
yeah.
Underground or Lou Reed podcast. This is David Bowie
Yeah.
podcast.
But the
Okay.
point is, I think you're right. I think he brought out the best in a lot of the people he worked with, and the point being is that yeah, Mick Ronson again, he just soars on this album, and I love it.
Definitely. So then that brings us to track 7, She Shook Me Cold. I love this song.
I do too. Yeah.
Going back to, I'm sorry to have to bring this up, but going back to Kurt Cobain and Nirvana before, um, uh, there was a list that was released online a couple years ago.
Mhm.
It's Kurt Cobain's top 50 favorite albums of all time.
Mhm.
And number 45 is The Man Who Sold the World. This track specifically, She Shook Me Cold, totally proto grunge. Um,
Mhm.
I can definitely hear where the Nirvana song, the Nirvana sound comes from. Is this track? This song also kind of reminds me of the Stooges a little bit
Mhm.
too, and the Stooges have also been labeled by many as proto grunge rock as
Yeah.
well.
And I'd
Um,
also argue it would be you could call this proto metal. This song gave me a real Sabbath vibe, especially in the
yeah,
bass
definitely.
playing. Actually, it reminded me the way Visconti plays bass on this actually really reminded me of the way Geezer Butler plays. I don't know why.
Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
it was
yeah.
particularly the bass playing. I was like, wow, this gives me Geezer Butler. You know. So I'm a humongous Sabbath fan. So I don't know. I could hear that, and I have to say that again the interplay between Visconti and Mick Ronson, especially at the end, there's kind of like a jam. It kind of ends on like a jam at the end, and killer stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'll say too that in addition to like the sound, lyrically, very much reminds me of a Stooges song as well too.
Yeah.
This song is actually about pretty much about oral sex. To sum it up from the perspective of a man, encountering, I guess, a sexual encounter with a woman, which that just screams Stooges right
Yeah.
there. But still, amazing track
Yeah, it's
nonetheless. I really dig
I think
this
it's
one.
really ahead of its time. Not you're talking like
That yeah
1970
yeah
there. That's like
sure. Well, hence the proto grunge title
yep.
totally. Um, but oh god, we got to talk about this next track.
Yeah, no kidding.
Speaking of proto grunge, right? The Man Who Sold the World. Um, this is like the space oddity off this album in the
Yep.
sense that this is just a stone cold
Yep.
classic. Now, the difference between this one and Space Oddity is Man Who Sold the World was not really much of a
Mhm.
hit at the time. Um, this song didn't really get that much recognition until the Nirvana cover many years later. Um, but God, this is such a sweet song. This is so good.
Oh, I know. I it's one of the best Bowie songs, at least of his early career, in my opinion. It's
Mhm,
a shame. Like, okay, I will say this: I'm not a big Nirvana fan. However, I will
mhm.
say that I do actually think they did a good job covering it. I just, again, don't like the fact that everybody knows the Nirvana version and doesn't know the Bowie version because the Bowie version's
Well,
so good, you know.
you didn't know that it's a Nirvana song, right?
Yeah,
Kidding, kidding,
all right, triggered. No, this is a great song, man. Like the lyrics are really, really great. This is one of those songs that, again, as I just said before, I'm not really a big lyrics guy. I shouldn't say it like that. I am a lyrics guy. I do appreciate good lyrics. I like lyrics, but they got to be like really stand out. Like, I don't want to say it. Just I don't know. Just really stand out and kind of paint a picture and tell a story, and that's what this song does. And I
Mhm.
think it's fantastic lyrics. I love that it's kind of got a sci-fi sort of spacey feel to it. I always love that Bowie does
Yeah.
that. He does it really well.
His vocals in this song are amazing.
Yes, they're fantastic. I said that the vocals and lyrics are entrancing when I wrote it down, which I think is
Mhm.
the perfect way to describe it. There, I love the
That's well said.
what's that what's that instrument that they use that gives it that kind of like twisting sound that you know what I'm talking about in the song?
Yeah, that is
What is that? I
called.
can't
Hold
remember the name of that
on.
instrument.
Um, what is that called? That is I believe, I could be wrong. Is it Moog synthesizer?
I don't know if that's the Moog or not. That is. I do love the keyboards in it. I think that's what you're talking about, the synthesizer. It's like I have to look. I'm gonna look this up. Please go on
Oh,
with your
good. Yeah. Hey,
thoughts
put me
here.
on the spot. But I mean, like, I agree with the lyrics. I mean, lyrically, this has always been one of my favorite Bowie songs. I mean, I've got the lyrics pulled up right now.
Hmm.
We passed upon the stair. We spoke of was and when. Although I wasn't there, he said I was his friend, which came as some surprise. I spoke into his eyes. I thought you died alone a long, long time ago. I, ugh.
So good.
Um, just a thought I had actually, while you're looking that
Hmm.
up, is we with Space Oddity we talked about you know the references and the comparison with 2001's Space Odyssey.
Hmm.
Um, Playing the song in my head and reading these lyrics, like this feels like this could be like a scene in a Stanley Kubrick
Oh,
movie.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't
Which
find it on here, by the way, so I'm not going to worry about it. But it's a cool little effect on the song.
yeah. Um, Also, another cool side note about this song is because it just reminded me when I was reading about it on
Hmm.
Wikipedia. Um, I don't know. Are you a Metal Gear Solid fan?
I've played a little. I played a little bit of it, but yeah, I'm not. I haven't played all the games.
Okay. Well, I'm one of my favorite game series, and although I haven't played Metal Gear Solid 5, the song is in the game,
I
and
remember this. Okay.
the scene that it's in, I'm not gonna spoil it, but it reveals like a major plot point in the series, and you hear the man who sold the world in the background, and I think the name of the cassette. So there's this scene with Snake, and I'm not gonna get into the details of the scene, but there's a scene with Snake, and he's got a cassette, and the cassette is labeled "The Man Who Sold the World."
Oh,
And while
cool.
he's listening to the recording that's on the tape, you hear the song in the background as well, and it just worked beautifully in the scene.
I'm
So
more than happy that you are talking about Metal Gear Solid. By the way, on a
totally, I
very
mean,
very
come on,
off side note, I got to go to David Hayter's panel at the convention.
yeah, that's right,
Yep.
yeah.
So
Oh, you lucky bastard.
that'll be something maybe we could discuss on my other channel someday.
Definitely, yeah. I would love to hear more about that.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, we can go on just about this song, but do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think so. I mean, it's to me again. It's a classic track for a reason. Really, really great stuff. Kind of a different vibe than the rest of the album. I always thought. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it definitely like one of the best songs I think he's done.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I think it's time to close this record by talking about the closer,
Hmm.
and that is the Superman.
This.
Um, I've got mixed feelings about this song.
Hmm.
As a closer, I think it's a great way to close the record. Um, this would definitely be the darkest track off
Hmm.
this record, hands down. Um, yeah, I don't know that just something like the last minute of this song and the way it just ends. It's very anticlimactic to me. Um, I love the first couple minutes of this song, but just the way I don't know. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but I don't know. It just the way this song ends is not. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't articulate my thoughts right now. That's not good.
it's I wasn't really wowed by it. I actually feel like this. I kind of wish this album ended on "The Man Who Sold the World." I feel like it would have actually ended better.
I think you definitely could have closed the record with "The Man Who Sold the World." There's actually another song that we'll talk about when we talk about B-sides and bonus tracks. Not saying that this would have worked as a closing track,
Mm-hmm.
but they could have added
Uh-huh.
and and then end the record with "The Man Who Sold the World." Um, but yeah, I just there's something about that last minute of this song. It just like it doesn't go anywhere, and it's a shame because I'm to me one of the most important things on any album is both. And I'm going to talk about this when we get to Ziggy Stardust. Is your opening track and your closing track. If you don't have a strong opener and a strong closer,
Yeah.
you're falling flat as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it doesn't really do any favors to the overall album. So,
No, it doesn't. And you've got a track like The Width of the Circle, which is such a fantastic opening song
mhm.
that this record just again it's just underwhelming.
Yeah, I I have to say, yeah, I wasn't really. It didn't stand out to me at all. I'm hoping this is one that'll be a grower for me. But yeah, I kind of have the same feelings as you, man. It was to me it was my least favorite track on the album, which is unfortunate because I thought the album was really great. Up and not that I think it takes away a ton from the album. It just kind of I think they could have just not had, or he could have just left this track off of the album, and it would have been fine. Like it would have been a better album. So,
Yeah, I agree. I was just reading that there's apparently on the 30th anniversary reissue of Ziggy
uh
Stardust, there's a re-recorded version of the Superman, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and check that out
yeah, same.
because I'm wondering if it's a better version. But yeah, unfortunately, kind of a bummer of a way to end the record.
Yeah, but otherwise, I thought the whole album was solid, man. I really liked this. Personally, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by this album because I hadn't heard it in many years. I'm very, like I said, I was very unfamiliar with it. I thought the musicianship on this album was top notch. I thought it was really, it was a different sound than I was expecting. Actually, I didn't expect it to be so heavy, and yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoyed the whole album. I didn't think I like even the Superman wasn't a terrible track.
No, by all means, it's not. This record definitely holds up. Um, Whereas a lot of hard rock records to me fall flat of
Mhm.
this. Um, it it sounds fresh. Like
Yeah,
it sounds of its time, but it also sounds fresh. It didn't feel dated sounding to me. Whereas a lot of hard rock records fall under that. Unfortunately, they just sound
yeah.
too of its time.
And there's some hard rock records that have the problem where the entire album sounds exactly the same, and this doesn't suffer from that syndrome, not
Not
at
at
all.
all.
I love the proggy elements. There's some nice acoustic moments in it. The lyrics seem to kind of drift back and forth between like cerebral and dark and kind of that kind of thing. So I don't know. I thought overall the album was well, and I actually am going to make kind of a controversial statement that I know is going to get you a little fired up, and just say
Mhm.
that I think while I like Hunky Dory better, I actually feel as an album
Don't
this
say it. Don't say it.
I
Don't say
actually
it.
feel
Don't
like
say it.
as an
No, don't
album this is
say
a
it.
bit more solid, but
Oh!
but Hunky Dory is a better album overall, just because there's such phenomenal stuff on it. So yeah,
For sure.
I mean I honestly
Oh,
I
I strongly disagree with that.
well
What I love about Hunky Dory, and I want to get into it because it's the next episode, but I think it's so consistent from start to finish overall. Very well sequenced.
well,
Oh,
there you go,
man.
guys. Here's a nice little preview of the next episode.
Controversy.
uh,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're kind of getting to our final thoughts
yeah,
already. But I do want to talk about our top three favorite tracks.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I originally had a similar opinion to this record that I still have with Space Oddity,
Mm-hmm.
in that at first I felt with this one that it still sounds like he's not sure what he wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements of prog rock, hard rock, heavy metal, whatever you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it. Do we want to be Sid Barrett? Do we want to be Ray Davies? Do we want to be Iggy Pop?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and while I still maintain that opinion on Space Oddity, I do think this one is a little more consistent, but I also love, and now I sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I also love the kind of different contrast of the different sounds of, again, prog, hard rock. I guess my point is it works better for this record than, say, for Space
Mm-hmm.
Oddity. Um, yeah, so even though I've always really liked The Man Who Sold the World, I still think it's grown on me more. I mean,
Yeah,
finding, a song like After All, discovering that for the first time. You mentioned that was a hidden
that was
gem.
great.
Um, yeah, I mean, and I didn't mention it, but She Shook Me Cold kind of, I grew a new appreciation for that song as well too. So more love has really been kind of developed with this
Mm-hmm.
one. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess I would kind of backtrack with my earlier statement in the beginning of the episode, um, where Bowie starts. Hunky Dory is where Bowie starts. I would maybe backtrack myself there and say that The Man Who Sold the World really is where Bowie
Mm-hmm.
starts.
Yeah, I think so. And I think even just like personnel alone, in terms of who plays on the album, some of the way the songs are written, particularly a song like The Man Who Sold the World, and maybe something like After All, and even some of the darker material, actually. I didn't realize until you kind of deep dive some of the lyrics a bit more, how
Mhm.
dark some of the themes he approaches are. So, interesting.
Let's get into, before we do our top three tracks and the episode,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk about B-sides and bonus tracks because there are a few actually worth mentioning.
Okay.
So around this time between Men Who Sold the World and Hunky Dory, Bowie actually had a side project called Arnold Corns.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into the Arnold Corns too much. I actually want to talk about them more on the Ziggy Stardust episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so he had this band Arnold Corns. Mick Ronson was in the Arnold Corns, I believe. The drummer was too.
Mm-hmm.
The only person who wasn't in it was Tony Visconti. But anyways, so on the 1990 reissue of The Man Who Sold the World, we actually get a couple Arnold Corn tracks. One song called being Lightning Frightening
Mm-hmm.
was recorded in 1971. Played this song a lot during the Man Who Sold the World tour. It's a pretty cool track. It's definitely kind of, in some ways, an extension to a lot of the tracks that are on The Man Who Sold the World. Very bluesy.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely worth checking out. There are actually some earlier versions of Moon Age Daydream and Hang On to Yourself, which would, of course, later appear on Ziggy Stardust. But those songs were originally written um, in Arnold Corn. So I don't know if you knew that.
Do you know if any of that stuff is available on any other albums? Because the Spotify version does not have the bonus tracks, which is unfortunate.
No, it doesn't. I had to listen to most of these on YouTube. You can absolutely find them on
Okay.
YouTube, but no, they're not on Spotify.
Okay.
Um, so those are worth checking out. There is a song that is called, it was a B-side to Black Country Rock, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Holy Holy. And that song is on Spotify. I think you have to go to the 5 years box set, but it was around the Man Who Sold the World era.
Okay.
Another great track. Definitely some T-Rex vibes on that song.
That's
This was
always
the
a good
track I
thing.
was. Yeah. This was yeah, definitely. Love T-Rex. This is a song that the song that I mentioned before that I wish was on The Man Who Sold the World.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a track worth checking out. And again, you can find that one on Spotify. And was there one other one? Oh no, that's for Hunky Dory. Never mind. Okay, so that covers the bonus songs and B-sides.
Before we do our top three, can I just do a quick... Actually, let's do our top three, and then I want to actually do a quick update from last episode. that I
Sure.
wish we had done in the beginning of the episode, but I forgot until now. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'll do mine first, I
Okay.
guess. For me, my number one would be The Man Who Sold the World.
Mm-hmm.
My number two would be The Width of a Circle.
Mm-hmm.
And originally I would have said my number three would be Running Gun Blues. But after all, would be like a very close, if not tie with Running Gun Blues.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, number four.
Mine would be very similar. I'd probably go first Man Who Sold the World, then Width of a Circle. Then it would be either between After All or She Shook Me Cold. It's tough.
Okay.
I don't know which one, but probably, I don't know. One of those. That's my top four.
There you go. We both cheated there.
I
Very
also do
similar.
really like Black Country Rock. That is the song that will not get out of my head.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'll say Black Country Rock's my third one, just to get you all worked up.
Just to be a prick. Fair enough. All right. Well, listen. Before we close this episode, go ahead and share with us what you were going to share.
So I don't know if you remember, but I actually did remember after re-listening to our Space Oddity podcast, and we both had some homework. Now I did half of my homework, so I'm sorry, Mr. King, that I have not done.
Oh yes. I know
all my homework, but I did do. I thought the one thing that you had suggested was I really needed to listen to, and I actually listened to it before I listened to Space Oddity. So, and I'm glad I did. And that was the acoustic version, the stripped down version of the Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud, and holy heck. Yeah, way better than the studio version. You were very, very correct about that. I really loved that version. So, yeah, I just want to figure to let you know that I did not listen to the Memory of Free Festival. You said I think there were two parts of it, right? A re-record of it.
Yeah, it was split into two parts and it was re-recorded in 1970.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's the superior version of that song as well.
I did not listen to those. I don't think I had a way to listen to them. I assume they're on YouTube. I'll have to check.
They're on Spotify.
Are they on Spotify? What?
Yeah, if you go to the 5 years box set, you can.
Oh, I didn't go to the 5 years box set. I should have. Okay. Well, so I did half my homework. Sorry.
Okay, well, and I guess I did my homework too, and that was listening to the 2019 mix of Space Oddity, which was fucking fantastic.
Right? Am I right? Come on, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely a good mix.
Like I said,
was it Tony Visconti that did the
yes,
remix
it was
for
the
that?
Tony Visconti mix.
Okay, yeah. No, it was great. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
that's really all I have to say about it.
I don't know how you felt about it, but I really felt after hearing that mix of it, I was like, wow, I liked this album more. I thought you could hear more into it, or hear more
definitely
in it, you know?
It's the closest that you're going to get to listening to it on vinyl, pretty much.
On what? Sorry?
It's the closest you're going to get to listening to it. Like, the closest in terms of, like, the sound quality. The closest you're going to... I cannot talk. The closest you're going to get to is as if you were listening to it on vinyl.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. But, I think that just about does it.
Yeah, I think so too. I kind of already said my overall thoughts on it. I don't know if you had anything else to say.
No, I mean, I did too. I don't really have anything more to add. Just other than I think this was a fantastic episode.
Yeah.
Despite all of its technical difficulties, and I can't wait
to get to Hunky Dory.
We are, which is the next
really episode. Now getting through, and although I have to say, I do really like The Man Who Sold the World, and I really think it was a pleasant surprise for me, this one, and I also really like Space Oddity. We're getting to the Bowie that I'm really, really excited about as well.
The nit and gritty.
So once we get like Hunky Dory on, it's the next several albums is some of my favorite stuff, so it should be interesting. I'm excited.
Hey. Well, I think it's time to close.
Alrighty, guys. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Again, if you're listening on Anchor or YouTube, we appreciate all of you people who watch us and comment and subscribe and whatever and give us feedback.
Anchor, YouTube, like, subscribe. Yeah. Stay tuned for social media as well as Spotify and other mainstream platforms that you listen to podcasts and listen to your music.
Yay.
All right, but for now, that is another sayonara. Bye.
Bye, guys. Peace.
Bye bye. That was a lame way to say goodbye.